Freaknik, The Wildest Party Never Told is a documentary that was released on Hulu not too long ago, and it chronicles how this social event with young black college students eventually evolved into something that everyone looked forward to every year, but then eventually turned into something that doesn't even resemble its original intent. Now, I remember before I watched this documentary, I watched the trailer for it, and I was like, that is interesting. And also, I was worried that I was going to get my black card revoked because I had never heard about this. And it seemed like something that I should have known about, but one of my good friends reassured me, like, it's okay that you don't know about this. It was a little before our time, and plus, given what it eventually turned into, it's a good thing that I didn't know about it. And let's be real, anybody that's my age, you probably know someone that's been to Freaknik, whether it's a family member, friend of the family, or co-worker. Hell, before I came home to film this review, I asked one of my bosses at my early morning job, hey, have you been to Freaknik? And his response was, hell yeah, I was there when it first started. But nonetheless, I watched the trailer for it, and anything that pertains to black culture or black history, I immediately want to check out. And I left this documentary with two different emotions, both informed and flabbergasted. Now, as far as the documentary itself, as a package, just like I said with Quiet on Set, I actually quite enjoyed this documentary, and the way they constructed and put this documentary together with all the interviews and the transitions and just the way they put this documentary together, I was really impressed. Now, as for the content itself, that's the real meat of this documentary. But I was really fascinated with the amount of history that they put in this documentary because, let's be real, it's just spring break or any other social event for young college students. But in this case, it was for black college students that didn't have anywhere to go for spring break or couldn't go home. And so a group of young black students back in the early 80s, they got together and put together this event called Freaknik, which put freak and picnic together, Freaknik. You get the point. But they basically put it together for everybody to just socialize and have a good time, cook food, you name it. It was a nice gathering for black college students, but then every type of black person came to Freaknik every year. But even outside of Freaknik, I like how they pretty much led up to it because they talked about Atlanta and its history. They talk about how basically Atlanta is its own Wakanda and how if you wanted to thrive as a black person, Atlanta was the place to go. That's where most of the HBCUs are. As far as black culture goes, that's where most of it resides. And it even got to the point where people came from outside of Atlanta just to join in on Freaknik. And big names started to get involved too, like Jermaine Dupri, who most would consider the Dr. Dre of Atlanta as far as music goes. He got in and got people endorsed. A lot of black businesses, they went to Freaknik just to sell their business. I really liked how this documentary highlighted how Freaknik was supposed to be just this pure thing that was just there for black folks and black folks only, and just the all-around positivity of it and just everybody just coming together having a good time. But then eventually it started to take a bit of a turn over the years, and that turn was pinpointed when the rap group 2 Live Crew got involved. And we all have heard some of their songs. I'm not gonna recite them for this video, but if you know at least 2 of their songs, 2 of them I'm singing in my head right now, you know what 2 Live Crew is all about. Once they got into Freaknik, that's when all the freaky stuff started happening, all the dancing and debauchery. I'm not even gonna beat around the bush. I'm gonna just call it for what it is. Real nigga shit started happening in Freaknik. Everybody started feeling more sexually free once they got to Freaknik, and then once that started happening, that's when things took a turn for the worse when it come to Freaknik. And it got to a point where they hosted the Olympics in Atlanta, and the mayor of Atlanta at the time, he basically had to say like, hey, like, let's keep this down a notch because we got the Olympics coming in. We want to set a good example for Atlanta. And they even had to reroute some of the streets just so people can go around and so that people coming in for the Olympics. Like, both what was happening within Freaknik and outside of Freaknik was just pure chaos. I'd say that 98, 99 period, that's when Freaknik reached its peak. But particularly in 98, when some of the worst things that could possibly happened in Freaknik. Like, there is this woman that they interviewed, and she was talking about how she went to Freaknik with a friend, and her friend had to leave her car for a little bit just to get her purse. And the friend that stayed in the car, that's when a crowd of people just come in, and then men just came in out of nowhere, just egging her on to just do something sexually. And then they just started grabbing her and started stripping her of everything. But then luckily someone yelled police, and then everybody flee. But then she was just left there half naked, and it was just a traumatizing experience for her. But Freaknik eventually stopped in 1999, and it has not happened ever since. But its legacy both for better and worse, lived on. And there's always some form of Freaknik always happening because, like I said, all Freaknik is just spring break, but for black folks. And you probably went to your own little Freaknik somewhere, whether it's on spring break in Miami, whatever. I think for me, my personal Freaknik was probably GHO, which stands for Greatest Homecoming on Earth at North Carolina A&T. There's another good friend of mine that went to school there, and we went to its homecoming multiple times, and I've always left having a good time. But as far as the documentary itself, I highly recommend it. If you do not know what Freaknik is, this is a good place to start. You'll learn its history and everything and what it turned into. Just the pure debauchery Freaknik had is just fascinating in itself. I'm going to give Freaknik, The Wildest Party Never Told, the hard eyes emoji.